Hey there, it's Nick, and it's time to do reflection number 4. And this reflection video will be on chapter 5 of Originals. So we'll be answering a few questions on it. And number 1 is, what does Grant mean by horizontal hostility? Give one example from the book and one from your own experiences. So by horizontal hostility, Grant is talking about conflicts in a movement done by a coalition or some sort of collaborative group, and even though that group is going towards the same idea, they have the same goal, they want the same thing, conflict arises between two or more parties due to details, due to means of getting to that goal. So for example, in chapter 5, Lucy Stone was beginning a suffrage movement, and she wanted a more general audience, all-encompassing strategy to promoting women's suffrage, while other people like Susan B. Anthony wanted to take a different, more divisive approach by siding with racists and calling for inequality and not being happy with the fact that black men had the right to vote. And she argued that that it's not fair that minorities can vote and that women can't, that minorities shouldn't be able to vote if women can't vote. So although both people like Stone and Anthony wanted women's suffrage in the end, they shared conflict due to the means, due to details, and due to details of how they were going to approach this goal. And in real life, well, I can talk about my upbringing as a Colombian American, someone with dual citizenship. For example, loving America and being a part of being an American. Although I'm an American, many people who don't have my ethnic background may not treat me exactly 100% as an American, even though I am an American. Just because I have my Colombian background, I'm the Colombian one. I'm the one that's not from here, and that's always been my label, being here. And when I live in Colombia, or when I would spend time in Colombia, when I lived in Colombia, I wasn't a Colombian, even though I'm a Colombian. I was the American because I had lived in America for a while. So even though as an American, I wanted to love America, and as a Colombian, I want to love Colombia, wherever I was different, and I couldn't be loved. And that's what divided us, even though we all wanted to love America or Colombia. So, next question. Question 2. Grant argues that transparency is not always the best policy and that enemies make better allies than frenemies. Do you agree with any of these two arguments? Why or not? Why not? I definitely agree. Well, it's not something I really thought about with frenemies and what Grant talked about, but when he presented his argument, I see where he's coming from, and I don't have really any reason to disagree. Actually, you know what? I changed my mind. I think it's good. I don't think enemies are better than frenemies. I think frenemies are better. They keep you in check. I think the instability and having the common ground at the same time keeps you in check and makes you better. Like, I'd rather have someone with a similar moral standpoint, moral grounding, than someone who is completely opposed to me. I feel like, for example, like the enemy of my enemy is my friend. I think that's true. I feel like the enemy of my enemy that becomes my friend is somewhat of an enemy, because in my imagination, I feel like if I'm competing with my enemy, I'm also competing with the enemy of my enemy, which indirectly is my enemy, which could be my frenemy. I mean, that's just by definition, I don't know. But I think having the the common ground that we are both against our enemies is supports us, but also keeps us slightly distanced away from each other, as we are not friends. We are just mutual enemies of someone. So I think being the enemy of an enemy, being a frenemy, is a good thing. It keeps you in check, because although you're trusting each other enough to cooperate, you're distancing each other enough to not fall too much into trust. So, reflect on 2 ideas from the chapter that stood out to me. Well, one idea that I really thought was pretty interesting was tempering radicalism. I always I felt like I kind of used it with my parents. So basically, tempering radicalism is not being too transparent, is sort of like not giving the whole pitch, is not revealing everything, but rather talking about something and getting that approved, and then using that to get to your goal. For example, in the book, Grant talked about an inventor that made a wireless charger, but instead of talking about selling a wireless charger, which was crazy, to be even thought of at the time, she would just pitch different aspects of it and ask for different parts of it from different inventors and designers to eventually culminate this product that ended up being feasible. I think it's true. It obviously worked in real life. I feel like it's something I've done with my parents. I'd be like, instead of telling them that I wanted to go on a date and I wanted to like take someone to the movies, I would just ask for money, or like I would like ask them to do a chore around the house so that I could get money so I could save it up to go on a date later, instead of asking them to take me on a date or to give me money for a date. I would get money, so it's okay. Another idea that I really enjoyed was the best ideas, and how the best ideas actually come from novelty and then have a little spin on it. That's something I never really thought about before, and I think is totally true. I think, and it just, especially the example from the book really stood out to me, just because Hamlet is one of my favorite plays, and it never really clicked in my mind that Lion King is basically Hamlet with lions and a little bit of tweaking from the original screenplay. So I love Lion King and I love Hamlet, and I never thought that the two were actually the same. So I think it's best to not come up with something new and sell the new, and not completely rip off something or mimic something. It's better to sort of mix the two, but it's always the order too. It's best to just start with something new and then add a twist of familiarity. Thank you very much.